Hello, everyone. My name is Miguel Davis, and today I'm going to be talking about team dynamics. Now, there are many things within this subject, but for this presentation, I'm going to highlight what I think is most important. Starting off with what is the difference between a group and a team? Sometimes both words, group and team, can be intertwined with each other, or some people might think they have the same definition. Um, in reality, they actually have um, separate definitions, and it's a lot more complex, and you can be easily confused. So, the first definition, which would be for a group, is two or more people who interact with and exert mutual influence on each other. Whereas a team is a group of people who must interact with each other to accomplish shared objectives. Now, both a group and a team, the people within these elements do share common interests, but the main difference is that a team requires development. And the way that I like to look at this is, for an example between a group and a team, is watching a football game. You're watching the TV, you can see the fans in the stands, and that's who we can consider as a group. They could interact, the fans could interact with each other, but they're all there with their own agendas, which is to watch the game and watch the team that they love. And where the team here is actually the people that are on the field, and they have a common goal, which is to win the game. So when it comes to team developments, there are three theories that can be discussed here. The first one is the linear theory, which is where a team or a group moves progressively through multiple stages. And within this theory, it states that there are critical issues within each stage. And there are four stages within the linear theory. The first one is the forming phase, and this is where in the beginning we can see the team actually get together, and they're meeting for the first time and learning how to work together as one. And the next stage would be the storming phase, and this is where you can see the team kind of get into internal conflicts with each other. For example, teammates can they can either get into a physical altercation, or there's just heated arguments, and this can decrease the performance within the team. After the storming phase is the norming phase, and this is where the team actually rallies back together, finds a common ground, and works towards the goal that they all share. And after the norming phase is the performing phase. This is literally the goal and the work being put into action. You can see a team or a group potentially make huge strides, um, with it towards their goal. The next theory that I want to talk about is the cyclical or life cycle perspective. And this is where a team, essentially, this is we can see the team development as it starts to form, it progresses, and eventually, towards the end, the team does break up. A great example for this would be the 1990s Chicago Bulls. We see here we have Michael Jordan, we have Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Steve Kerr, we have Phil Jackson as well, and all of these people together made a great effort and made history for the city of Chicago. They have won 6 NBA Final championships from 1990 to 1997. Unfortunately, after that, good things do come to an end, as this perspective or this theory would say. Um, After that season, Michael Jordan retires for the second time. He eventually comes back, but he plays for the Washington Wizards. Um, Dennis Rodman ends up playing for the San Antonio Spurs, and Phil Jackson, he is no longer the coach of the Chicago Bulls. Later on down the road, he coaches the LA Lakers and ends up coaching Kobe Bryant. The next theory I would like to talk about is the pendulum model. And the main focus with this theory is the shift in relationships within the team during its development. And unlike the linear theory, there are no certain stages here, and it doesn't move in sequence. So if we're actually looking at thinking of an actual pendulum, it swings back and forth. For example, we can see a team performing well together. Everybody is in good terms with each other. And as that pendulum swings down, we can see little cliques start to form within the team, and which would lead to more conflict when the team does not perform well, which is going to cause the team to fall farther apart. Now, within this pendulum, there is a second peak. So we're going to start to see the team start to be back on good terms, and they can start performing well together and start to succeed. And then eventually, or unfortunately, this goes back and forth. So this is going to happen over and over again over time. The next thing that I want to talk about is the structure within team dynamics. And this is where roles get filled out within a certain team, whether it is formal or informal. An example of a formal role within a team, I'm actually going to use my time in the Marine Corps, and that's me on the left side of that picture there. So my role within my firing battery, artillery firing battery, I was the ammunition technician. So I was in charge of getting the small arms ammunition, like bullets and stuff, to or even collecting the projectiles to shoot through these cannons. So that's an example of a formal role there. An informal role, we can look at an example. It happens through interactions. So let's say there's a heated argument between two team members, and someone is stepping in and trying to de-escalate the situation. That person that's stepping in, they have attained the informal role of the mediator. And within certain roles, or within every role in team dynamics or in a team, there are three main components. And the first one is clarity. And this is where you want to understand, this is where the person understands their job, and that they should stick to their job. I'm sorry for the stuttering there. Within role clarity, there can be some issues. For example, we can see, let's use a linebacker on a football team on defense. That linebacker's main goal is to be the second line of defense for a offensive ball carrier, whether it's the wide receiver or the running back, once they break through the defensive line first. The linebacker's main job is to tackle the ball carrier and to stop the ball from going forward towards their end zone. Now, sometimes we can see in games that we see on TV, we can see a linebacker, they can make an interception, and this can happen, multiple times in a game, or a few games in a row, and the linebacker can potentially shift in their mind that their main job is to intercept the ball, where in reality it is just to stop the ball carrier. The next component is the acceptance of your role. You have to be willing to accept what your role is, whether you're in the starting lineup or you're on the bench. You have to believe your contribution within the team does play out in the team's success. So, for example, somebody that's sitting on the bench, they might not be starting, but they have to believe that, their task is once they get substituted in, is to keep that momentum for the team to move forward. And within that, sometimes we can see a conflict within the role. We can see, like, for example, someone might feel like that they're wearing too many hats for their role and they should probably stick to one thing. So, a reflection question for you guys is within your own experiences, how is the structure in your team or group setting? And were you satisfied with your role? Now you can think about when you were playing a certain sport, or you can look at this within your coworkers at your job. The next thing I want to talk about here is team climate, and there's many components here. I'm going to go through these really quickly, just so I don't take up too much time. One component is the social support. The Your teammates or your team members. This is where you can see the emotional or behavioral support from your teammates when you are in a down state. And this does play in the success through hardship. For example, we have Dak Prescott here, who unfortunately had his ankle broken earlier this season in the NFL, and you can see his teammates rallying around him, trying to cheer him up because he is a main part of the Dallas Cowboys, and he's actually had a lot of issues happen within the year. So he had, his brother committed suicide, so he was dealing with the loss of that, and he was also, struggling to get a new contract from the Dallas Cowboys. So this is where he started to break down, and you can see his teammates rally around him. Which leads to my next point is proximity. The So when you're in a team climate, you can see more success within the team when the members itself or the members themselves, spend a lot more time with their teammates. For example, looking at a college sports team in the NCAA, some coaches might have their players room with each other in a residence hall. And distinctiveness within the team. This is where the team feels like they're different from everybody else. An example of this, this is they can repeat a team motto, or this is completely simply the uniforms that they wear that distinguish themselves from other people. And fairness comes in where this is where the coaches actually comes in, because the players or the team members have to believe or have to trust the actions of the coach, where they're starting or or sitting, which leads to my next point in similarity. The coach's role is to get all of their members, or the leader has to get all of their members to believe in one task, because even though this is a team, it is made up of a group of individuals, and they can all come from different backgrounds. Task interdependence. This is where we can see everyone chipping in or pitching in towards the goal here, and they can rely on one another to get the job done. Within climate, we can oftentimes you can see an assessment or a survey conducted, and most what this does, mostly you can see this done electronically or on paper, and this is where you know members of the team can express their feelings while remaining anonymous, and this is where we can see improvements all across the board. And the last thing I want to talk about is maximizing individual performance. Sometimes we can see what's called the Ringelmann effect, and that takes place when as a group or a team gets bigger, an individual might not put 100% into the task because um, they believe that someone else on the group or in the group can take over and pick up the slack that they left behind, and sometimes we can call this social loathing. A quote that I would like to share with you guys that I think fits perfectly here is by General George Patton in the U.S. Army during World War II. And he said, "Don't ever let up. Don't ever think that your job is unimportant. Every man has a job to do, and he must do it. Every man is a vital link in the great chain." Now, we often hear the saying, "You're only as strong as your weakest link." And this goes on in sports or even in real life. For example, we're looking at the picture in the background. This is the military. If someone doesn't, put in their all within the mission, this could result in the death of someone else, or that certain individual not putting in 100%. And with that, my last reflection question for you guys is: what other situations would you see the Ringelmann effect take place? This concludes my presentation. I hope you guys like it and that you learned from it. Thank you for your time, and take care.